Hello and welcome to Real Menopause Talk. My guest today is Thelma Mensah. Sometimes I feel we've almost been a little bit formal on the pod, in spite of the nature of our conversations. So today, I invite you to press pause for a moment, if you can, of course, and you're not dog walking or driving. Make yourself a cup of tea, put your feet up, and have a listen. Break the habit of multitasking so you can really join Thelma and I for a good old natter, a bit of a laugh, and all the interesting conversation she brings to the table. Thelma gives us an in-depth breakdown of her experience of perimenopause and how you get to know yourself and your body really well at this stage of life. We talk about how stress manifests in symptoms and triggers, and how it may be worth it to try again when it comes to HRT. We actually cover so much more, from food and culture to representation and the great foundations for optimal living. So, press pause. I am prescribing rest and self-care. Get yourself a cup of tea and join in the conversation.
Hi, Hattie.
Hi, Thelma. Lovely to meet you. How are
you?
I've been secretly kind of stalking you in a nice, friendly way on Instagram, because you trained under Jenny Borrell as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
Love Jenny Borrell. She's wonderful.
I've known her for years.
Have you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, look, me and you, I can see we're going to go on and on and on. I can tell. Let's start.
We could. There is so much I want to hear from you. How are you doing?
Good. It's a bit of a hectic day for me today because my daughter's going on a school trip tomorrow. She's going to San Francisco, so it's just like last minute panic, and she's just getting on my nerves. When have you got children?
I have, yes, 16 and 10.
Right, so when you're telling them to do something in advance, they're like yeah, and then you go to check and it's not there. So I had to run out to buy a rucksack when I asked you, is your rucksack okay? Yeah. And then, anyway.
I'm afraid I do. Yeah. In fact, with the very rucksack for Reading Festival a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I feel your pain. San Francisco as well. Wow.
I know. She's lucky. Very, very lucky.
Thelma, to start off with, could you tell us a little bit about you?
So, my name's Thelma Mensah. I'm a women's health coach. I've been working with women with issues around women's health for over a decade now. And I know just before we came on, you mentioned Jenny Borrell, who I did all my training with. And it's so interesting that you mentioned it, because what I was going to say is, I mean, if you know Jenny Borrell, you know she's like a pioneer in all things women's health. And like, I've been with her for so long. I mean, when I started training with her, nobody was talking about women's health issues like diastasis, pelvic floor. Nobody was. It's quite common now. Women are a little bit more aware. But back then, nobody was talking about that type of stuff. So anytime I meet someone who's been sort of Borrell educated, especially the old instructors, I know that you know your stuff. Because,
Yeah, I love Jenny Borrell, and she really knows in depth.
She knows her stuff. Yeah. So I guess now, I used to be a holistic core restore coach with Jenny. That's sort of Jenny's licensee thing. I only left recently, and more because I just wanted to branch out and be a bit more niche with my audience, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a second. So I left that recently, but I still am obviously a member of Borrell Education, and I'm focusing more on older women of colour, Black women, and just more menopause stuff, but also including, my passion is that women understand that they need the foundational pillars of life to live their best life, which are what? Health, good food, sleep, mental health. I'm sure I've missed one out. Those reducing or identifying just those type of things. Very passionate about that type of stuff.
Same here, and as a fellow Jenny Borrell educatee, I've lost words again today. Student. There we go.
Hey. Alumni, is that it?
Alumni. See, that's a much more sophisticated way of putting it. As a fellow Jenny Burrell alumni, I'm always happy to talk about all things women's health and pelvic floor and everything that goes with it. Where are you currently in terms of perimenopause, menopause?
So I would say it's so interesting. Well, this is why I love that we're having this conversation. I would say now I'm in the perimenopause phase, but it just fluctuates. Like I haven't had a period since April, but I've been in that situation before when you think I'm coming up to a year and then it pops up. So I'm kind of in that phase now where I'm peri, but potentially I think I'm going to be menopausal. Well, if I hit April 1 year, then I will be, because I'm 50 now. So I think I'm heading more towards menopause, postmenopausal. But you never know with this period of life, though, Hattie. Do you know what surprises and delights it can bring you?
That's one of the things I find the hardest is it going to be 18 days or 30 or 40, or could it even go a few months? And so I have my fingers crossed for you, frankly, that you make it through to April and beyond.
Yeah.
How has it been for you so far?
It's been an interesting one. I mean, like, I think I'm going on this journey and I'm looking at a lot of my symptoms retrospectively because I didn't know what was happening when it was happening. And if I do look back, I think I started having symptoms probably. I was talking to my friend, I've got a gym wife, my gym bestie, and we were talking about one time when I came in the gym and I used to compete and everything, so I was really, really fit. I remember I came in the gym one time and I just had no energy and I just felt off and I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And I think that was about maybe 6 years ago. And I think that was sort of the start of it. Things like noticing, and it wasn't the obvious ones like hot flushes or night sweats. I think even further back than before they came, I started having things like more cellulite on my body, which I didn't understand because I've never had cellulite before in my life. Things like that, more water retention.
Yes.
Just feeling off, something you can't put your finger on, but just off. And when I look back, and I had this is the thing that I realised was linked to. I had a constant ache in my shoulder out of nowhere, like a pain in my shoulder. And I don't know if you've seen work by Michelle Lyons.
I love her. Anything about bowel movements, you go to Michelle.
Yeah, that's her thing, isn't it? She did a talk or something when we were in Holistic Core Restore or something, and she was talking about the link between shoulder pain or old injuries flaring up,
frozen shoulder, things like that.
Yes. So it wasn't until later on I started realizing I'd had these symptoms before, but because I didn't have the education that I have now, I didn't know.
And nobody talks about frozen shoulder as a symptom of
nobody talks about that. Yeah, exactly. I was expecting the hot sweats. I didn't have those back. I did not have those back in the back. They've been quite recent with me.
Right, which could mean you are towards the end of the transitional part, perhaps.
I think it could be, but I noticed, because I think I know my body really well now, and I think certain things trigger those hot flushes. Like if I'm super stressed, like I went for a really past 3 years with COVID, and then I lost my mum, and I had a really super stressful phase of my life, and I think that exacerbated my menopause. In fact, I think it accelerated them as well. So I know that stress manifests big time in my body and makes my symptoms worse, especially the hot flushes. Sugar, big time one for me. Like that one will trigger it. I'm not a drinker, or I don't drink caffeine. I know for a lot of women that can be a trigger as well. So I just know now that I even go as far to say, if I don't exercise for a long time, I mean, I'm on HRT now. I suppose we'll come to that, which has helped massively. But I noticed that if I don't exercise, when I was off the HRT, it was worse. Oh, I tell you another symptom I noticed that in the earlier days is like just cognitively. Like I'd look at my daughter and say I want to say to her, pick up your socks. I'd look at her and I'd go, pick up the cow. And she'd go, are you all right? Random things like that. And I now realise that was part of it as well.
Yeah, I sympathise with that. Words literally fall out of my head on a daily basis at the moment, and people just have to bear with me until
Yeah,
it's a bit like charades, sing in the sky, not a bird.
yeah,
Yeah, well, you've just done it for me as well, student.
yeah,
One
yeah.
of the things I do want to talk about is pelvic floor and pelvic, although I'd really like to talk about what has helped you. So let's do that first. How have you managed your symptoms?
I try to, this is probably my third attempt at trying HRT. But what I realized back then is that the HRT combination I was on wasn't working because I was in a super stressful place.
Right.
And this is why I know that you can't out HRT. I say you can't out HRT bad lifestyle choices.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, bad is a wrong word because if you can't help stress, if someone passes or, you get divorced, you can't help that. But they make your symptoms worse. I am absolutely certain of that. So I think when I was taking that HRT, I think I was on estrogel and utrogestin because the lifestyle part was out of balance. It just wasn't working. I remember the utrogestin used to make my tummy come out there, but that was because the stress was making my gut health worse and a whole load of other combos. And then I came off of that and then I saw this so-called Harley Street expert who put me on Everil Conti, and that was hell on earth. Constant bleeding, non-stop. It was really, really bad. And I remember saying to him, because it's not, Everil Conti's, the progesterone part is synthetic.
Right.
And I remember saying to him, is it? He's like, yeah. Almost like, minimizing me. I know this, that, and that was hell on earth. So I just tried to do the so-called natural route. But I just noticed as time went on, cognitively, that was getting worse. And the night sweats were just too much for me. They was just too much. So I thought I'm going to give it a third try. And at that point, my lifestyle stuff was on point. So I was practicing good sleep hygiene, exercising. The stress was still there, but I'd found coping mechanisms to minimize that. So now I'm on Lenzetto and utrogestin, and so far, so good. I've been around the houses. But one thing, as I said before, one thing I can't stress enough to women is I think they think HRT is this magic pill that's going to solve everything. You can't. This is a phase of life whereby you need to take the best care of yourself more than you've ever done in your entire life. And you can be on HRT, but if you haven't moved in 20 years, now is the time that you've just got to start moving. The wine o'clock's got to go. Midlife women love a wine o'clock. All of that's got to go. You just got to, there's really look after yourself.
There is nowhere to hide.
Nowhere to hide. Say it louder, Hattie. Nowhere to hide.
Well, I'm so glad you've got to a point where you are able to manage it. And it just goes to show that persevering with HRT, if you choose to go down that route or pause, try again, it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, I don't think that messaging gets out enough. Like some people try it and think, it's not for me. You've got to play around with dosages. It might be the brand's not right. It might be however you're taking it. But if your symptoms are that severe, definitely think about it. But I'm not like a pro HRT person or a anti HRT. I'm a pro do you. What works for you.
And feeling good, definitely.
1,000%.
So one of the many ways that you look after the women who come to you is managing incontinence. And I feel this is something that we just don't talk about. In fact, I've only got like 2 or 3 people that I've genuinely opened up to about running over to say hello and thinking, oh my God, am I going to make it? Because it's not a pretty subject.
Yeah.
So many of us have incontinence issues of one sort or another. And one of the testimonies from your clients I absolutely love. She says she can jump rope, not a snowball's chance in hell here, without leaking after taking your course. So can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that was a really good client. She did the work. I met her on Clubhouse. I think this was in lockdown. We were doing a talk about pants, not pads or something like that, saying, you shouldn't have to rely on incontinence pads. Treat the cause, not the symptom. Is that it? Yeah. So I met her on Clubhouse, and she was saying, really frank discussion with a lot of women. Like, they did well to be open. And she was saying that, like, you know, when she likes jumping rope, it's a new hobby, but she's noticing that she has to double up on the pads and all of that. And I was just like, first of all, you can do something about that. And then we just came off, and then we just had a chat, and she did it. She was it was a new course because I was almost test running it. And she did that course in 8 weeks. It's called Peeing Myself. So the initials are PMSLF. Go on the website. So yeah, she did that course and it improved. And I was really surprised, actually, because I feel like pelvic floor dysfunction is a bit like physiotherapy. It's sometimes you have to do those exercises every single day to get relief, but some people don't want to do them because it's a bit boring. You know, if you break your arm and they say you have to do this, and you're like, it's patient. You have to be a bit patient. And she was really good. She did the exercises every day, checked in with me, and we looked at, this is another thing about incontinence that I think a lot of wellness coaches don't talk. They don't look at the lifestyle aspect as well. So, you know, triggers, spicy food, alcohol, the usual suspects, caffeine, even some women, sparkling water, smoking. We addressed those on the course as well, and just generally got her food better, because why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, really happy with the results. And she said she still does them from time to time as well. I spoke to her maybe a couple of months ago when I wanted to get that testimonial from her. She, yeah, up until now, she's still fine, and she's still able to do her jump rope, yeah, with confidence. So yeah, that was a really good one. That was, yeah.
Well, coming straight onto food, then we've been messaging a little bit about food, and I had a glorious holiday in the summer. So lucky to go to the Caribbean. Started trying to cook saltfish and bake. It's good. There's room for improvement. So some of the beautiful food from Tobago. But we hear, and Mediterranean diet is the go-to, and it's great. It's got all the right ingredients, all the right focus. But some of the wisdom from other cultures like Japanese, Indian, Caribbean cooking food are so delicious and also healthful. Do you have anything that's a bit more unusual or interesting than the Mediterranean diet?
The thing is with the Western world is this notion of what's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Because I always think according to whose standards, because what I'm finding as well is that I think it all comes from diet culture, good food, bad food, instead of nourishing food. Mm-hmm. And I think it all depends on where you are in your wellness and health journey. Like rice sometimes gets a bad rap for being, it's too carby. Well, if we look at Japanese culture and certain Asian cultures, they eat rice every day, and it's not a problem. So for me, I'm just having to unlearn a lot of thinking around good food and bad food. Some people can get away with more perceived bad foods than healthy foods. And again, I think healthy foods is relative as well, because I don't think rice is a unhealthy food. You know, so for me to say, what's healthy, I was struggling a bit, because in my culture, like, we have this rice called jollof rice. It's just basically a spicy rice made with tomatoes. Sometimes you put some meat in it. Some people would say, oh, the way it's cooked, they use too much oil. But when I go to grandma in the village, there's nothing wrong with her. She hasn't got, because the ingredients she's using are literally farm to fork ingredients. She's going to pick the tomatoes from the garden. She's maybe, you know, the rice is like not processed, but the way we cook food here is very processed. Even what we think is healthy food is very processed, very manufactured. So I think it's because my thinking has changed. Like, whereas I would say to clients, this is healthy, I was probably at some point saying, you've got to eat the Mediterranean diet, this, that, and the other. Yeah, 1,000%, there's some healthy elements from that. But I've had to rethink, because again, if I'm working with women from other cultures, am I saying to them that your own cultural food is bad? Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And if you've been brought up on a certain diet, you're not going to totally abandon that for a Mediterranean diet. It's just not happening. And I think that's why some healthy, in quotes, eating based on the Mediterranean diet doesn't work for certain women with certain cultures, because it's not sustainable. It's not their food.
Yeah.
I can't tell someone from Japan to eat some avocado and olive oil. I mean, nothing wrong with it, but that's not their food.
Well, even trying to educate women over here in the UK away from what certainly I've been brought up with as toast or cereal for breakfast, because that'll spike your blood sugar, into a more savoury breakfast. Many cultures start with savoury and eat savoury throughout the day, which is
Yeah,
a joy as well. I think it's the discovering. And you're so right about the processed food, because if you look at something like a baguette in France, it's white
yeah,
bread. So
yeah,
many people would term that as bad in inverted
yeah.
commas. But all there is to it is flour and
Sugar
water.
and water,
And
exactly.
that's it. Whereas here you've got flour and sugar,
Yeah,
and I don't
exactly.
even know what else goes
Yeah,
into it.
exactly. And I read a report about that somewhere where and I think this is me. I think it was because I'm a bit I'm wheat intolerant. I have been for like 30 years, long, 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 long time. But if I go to Ghana, where I'm from Ghana, if I go to Ghana to the village and I eat the bread there, I can tolerate it. And it goes back to what you're saying. It's the ingredients. And even like a grain like spelt,
Mm-hmm.
which is part of the wheat family, I can tolerate that, but I can't tolerate commercially produced wheat because spelt hasn't been as messed with as commercially produced wheat. So it's all these sort of little what is it, nuances that I just think as wellness coaches, we just need to look at the woman in front of us and go deeper with her screening and her lifestyle choices and not just give her this sort of generic, I guess it's the standard Mediterranean. It makes it easier, but I just think you need to look at the woman in front of you and say she might not be down for eating olive oil and sun-dried tomatoes if she's from Africa or the Caribbean. That's just not their reality.
And perimenopause, menopause, the whole process is so personal. Finding something that somebody is happy to do and able to find joy in and able to stick to makes far more sense than trying to force them down the wrong
1,000%.
shaped path.
And more sustainable. They're going to stick at it. If
Yes.
it's like exercise or food, if you find something that, particularly with movement, like now, sometimes I go on Instagram and I see these so-called menopause fitness experts, and I'm just like, I can tell straight away you have no experience of working with midlife women, even though you're midlife yourself. Because if you did, you wouldn't be prescribing those exercises. Because half the time you're dealing with women that are sleep deprived. So if I've not slept for like 30 days. Do I want to get up and do burpees and star jumps? I'm not doing it. Do you
Oh,
know
yeah.
what I mean?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's the same philosophy with when you're working with a postnatal woman. Remember, that woman is tired. She's not going to do stressy exercise. And also, we're trying to keep those cortisol levels down. So why are we giving midlife women stressy exercise on top of the stress that they've got already? And 9 out of 10 times, those women don't even enjoy those type of exercise. It puts the fear of God in them. So why are we giving them that exercise? Then she's not going to do it. And then it becomes that vicious cycle of, I've still got the menopause weight, I'm doing the burpees, but it's not working. So it's just stress, 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 stress. Raised cortisol levels, here we come.
And then the symptoms get worse.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
You do you couldn't be more apt. And finding something that makes
Yes.
you really happy.
Yes, yes, yes. Now is the time more than ever. And I think things like for movement as well, I think walking is so underestimated. It needs to be prescribed. I think fitness experts, wellness experts who are dealing with midlife women need to prescribe it more, not only from a physical point of view, but from a mental health point of view. I now find, especially because we had that nice summer,
Yes.
where you could really get out.
Mm-hmm.
I now find like if I don't leave the house, I just I have to go out. Whereas before, and again, I think that's coming off the back of lockdown as well. We've got to remember post COVID as well, we're dealing with people with a lot of mental issues. So if you add that into the menopause mix as well, we've really got to start putting in these structures that are dealing with perimenopause women that need to start looking after their mental health as well, which,
Yeah.
as we know, for some start declining when those estrogen levels start. So there's a lot of preventative stuff I think that we can do or women can do for themselves that are going to make that transition a bit easier for them.
I've had a look at your new website and it is a thing of glory.
I loved it that you said that.
It's so slick and powerful and
Oh,
beautiful
bless
to
you.
look at. You can tell you've put in the time about
There's a
thinking about the
lot.
design, and it
Yeah.
is just gorgeous. Deep, radical, nourishing self and healthcare for Black women. And even those words are so powerful. And again, we've talked about the public face of menopause and how it is predominantly slim white women. And as a white woman, I just feel so much joy at your website and what
Mm.
you're doing, amongst other beautiful Black women as well. Talk to us about representation. It's a difficult conversation and it needs to be had.
1,000%. And I think that whole concept of deep radical self-care, again, I think I've got to give some of that credit to Jenny as well, because she kind of drummed that into us as well. And even for me, back in the day when I started my training, to see a Black woman like Jenny was just like a unicorn, because even now there's still not a lot of us out there, really know their stuff. And I think for me, the website, I mean, that's been like about, I've got notebooks with ideas from like 3-4 years ago in it, to see it come to life. And it was just that I was just tired of not seeing women that looked like myself represented in the menopause world. And I think even aside of colour, what frustrates me about this whole menopause world is that the imagery always seems to be sort of old women like that, sort of just stay old bred. I don't know why I'm doing an old woman voice. But do you know what I mean? So even if as I've seen you, Hattie, I'm like, oh, Hattie's trendy, because we never see that face of menopause. You've got to remember, women are living longer than they ever had. All of my friends look young. They take care of themselves. But you would not look at them. If you went by what's in the media, you would not look at them and go, they're menopausal. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to change. I wanted representation, obviously, Black women, and just dynamic women that have still got it going on, still into their fashion, still look after themselves, to let women know that it's not the end of the road. We still look good.
Far from the end of the road. I'm hoping it's the beginning of the better one.
Exactly. It just frustrates me. It's always sort of tired, old looking women, predominantly white. But even the white women that are being shown, I think they're being done an injustice, because we need to get rid of this old narrative of sort of women just being put out to pasture and just looking, I don't even know what the word is, Hattie.
I think they're just sad and drab.
Bad.
Faded. Everything's kind of muted.
Grey.
Yes.
Nothing dynamic.
No.
Not vivacious. Nothing.
Everyone I've spoken to is dynamic, interesting, powerful, creative, and everyone is a midlife. Well, there have been some men, but these midlife women are fabulous. Really fabulous.
I think the aesthetic of it all needs to change. Because if we think about it, let's just look at and people say, oh, there's celebrities, they've got trainers, this, that, and the other. No. I just don't buy into that. If you think someone like J-Lo is midlife, like Liz Hurley gets so much stick because she refuses to look like it's the end of the road. Oh, she's got money, this, that, and that. No, she just refuses to buy into that. What is wrong with that? I find it inspiring, and I've been using this phrase a lot. It's not your mother's menopause. It's not your auntie's menopause. It's not your grandma's menopause. Even Davina looks good, but she got stick. She works hard. Let's just be real. She's in the gym, kicking ass. You can't whinge from the sofa.
Any parting pearls of wisdom, Thelma? I'm gutted that we don't have all day.
No, we've covered quite a lot, haven't we? I just want people to understand that. I think, there's a lot of, because I find menopause is becoming, and this is women's health in general, very middle class, very sort of, if you don't have deep pockets, you can't help yourself. There's a lot that women can do right now, like today, right now, to ease your symptoms. And I'm big on foundational stuff. I feel like there needs to be more preventative stuff. It's like when you have a baby, you don't just bowl up to the hospital and say, ready for delivery. You've done a lot of prep work before. You've read all the books. You stop drinking. Why are we not doing that for menopause? So, you should be now. This is the time when most women stop moving. This is the time when, if you haven't, you need to start. You need to start eating better food. You need to start managing stress. So for me, I just want women to realize that it's not all doom and gloom. It can be an amazing phase of your life. When you go to work with a trainer or a so-called do your research and make sure they know their stuff. Having like 20,000 followers on Instagram does not make them, an expert. And just have a bit of acceptance that you're going to go through this. It may not necessarily be all bad. Yeah, it's a good phase of life. I think that's a big thing that I want women to take away.
I think that's a really good point, actually, having a positive mindset about it, because it might be great.
Sail through it, yeah.
And if it isn't, you work on tweaking.
Yeah, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine. There's more knowledge than ever now.
Thelma, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
you're welcome, Hattie. It's been a pleasure.
I've loved every minute of it.
Have a good day.
Care. You can find Thelma on Instagram at After9Lifestyle, and that's 9 the number, and on her beautiful website, after9lifestyle.com. As usual, I will put all the details in the show notes so you can make sure you can reach her. Please recommend Real Menopause Talk to everyone you meet, as it really does make a difference. And remember, you can sign up to the New Look newsletter on our website, realmenopausetalk.com. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.